October the 7th was one of the worst things I've ever seen. I think the retribution, as I call it, by Israel has now gone way beyond what is acceptable. I take issue with people that want to frame it as genocide purely from a technical point of view, that actually the definition of genocide would mean that, if Israel had killed 1 million people, I could accept the argument this is a bona fide genocide. It's more complex for me as a journalist when I look at this and compare it to other genocides, and I compare it to other wars, that if you take the central argument of Israel, which is take the October the 7th and the scale of it, with 250 people being kidnapped, including babies and Holocaust survivors, with 3,000 people coming over the border, attacking indiscriminately people, killing 1,200 and wounding nearly 7,000 more. If you take the scale of what happened, Hamas knew what Israel was going to do by way of response. Hamas indisputably have buried themselves into civilian areas quite deliberately for self-protective reasons. And Israel has been, I don't think they've been anything but indiscriminate.
So I just need to interrupt Piers Morgan here for a second. Piers Morgan was on Candace Owens' show. They did a little crossover. First he came on her show, then she came on his show. So moments ago, Piers Morgan just said he doesn't know if Israel meets a technical definition for genocide on what they're doing to people in Gaza. And he said that is purely based off the technical definition and the numbers. And I'm here looking at the technical definition. I don't think the technical definition has anything to do with numbers. It's not like, oh, if you kill 50,000 people or less, it's not a genocide. If you kill 50,001 people and more, then it's considered a genocide. That's not how genocides work. Reading the actual technical definition, it says that certain acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. By that definition, I think Israel surely is committing a genocide.
Actually, in a lot of their attacks on these areas, particularly on the refugee camps, I think it's completely unconscionable, some of the stuff they've done there. And I think that it's gone on way too long and it has to stop. And I think I always ask people throughout the debates, what is a proportionate response? I didn't have the answer. I didn't know what is the correct proportionate response to the scale of October the 7th. Occupiable now. I think the aggressive expansion on the West Banks has been a form of terrorism, which is completely unacceptable. I think some of the language of some of the cabinet members has bordered on genocidal. And I think that there are clearly some members of that Netanyahu cabinet who actually would have no problem if all the Palestinians left Gaza right now.
I would say a big part of that government would have no problem if the Palestinians left right now.
And so I'm not saying that there's not a potential for a form of genocide to be here. We might look back at this in 2 years and you might say to me, well, we told you this is genocide, what they've done. They've got rid of all the Palestinians. That could happen.
This is what we call plausible deniability. Go look it up. Basically, you word things in a way where you're never wrong. It's like, oh, I told you so, but then you can't come back and prove him wrong because he said, oh, there might be a chance where he's wrong. Plausible deniability. Go look it up.
And I pray that doesn't happen. And I pray that, as I've always felt, the only way through this ultimately is fresh leadership on all sides, as we saw in Northern Ireland after many decades of horrific war between the IRA and the loyalists. I'll just ban all trans-Asians.
Before Piers Morgan moves on to a different topic, I just want to talk about something real quick. I need to get something off my chest. Piers Morgan, say whatever you may about him. Maybe he just brings guests on his show so he could have a debate and just get views. He gets opposing viewpoints on Gaza and Israel. He does it for the views. Maybe. We'll never know for sure. Where does he stand on Israel and Gaza? He seems to flip-flop all the time on every episode. We will never know for certain. And he probably does this all for the money. That's what I personally think. And again, we will never know for certain. But one thing I will say, and I will commend, is that indirectly what it does is it gives people from the Palestinian side a story and a platform. It gives them a platform to share their side of the story. And before his show, we didn't really have a chance to do that. So say what you may about him, I think he is necessary for the voice to come out to the public, because the older public is not on TikTok, not on Instagram. They see his show though. So I think there is a need for him.
Great. And I think a lot of Americans went, yes, it shouldn't even be ambiguous. Yeah. And obviously, if we're letting 10 million illegal immigrants across the border in 4 years, that can't be good for America. How can that be? We need good immigration. Of course we do. we can't sustain this, and we've got the same problem in this country. You raise it. Nearly 1 million people came in last year in this country, net migration. Completely unsustainable for a little island of 67 million people. People say, I just passed my driving test at the 8th attempt. I'm so proud of myself. Really? Why aren't you ashamed of yourself? I'd keep that bloody quiet if I were you. What are you boasting about? 8 times to... How dumb are you? And by the way, why are you driving? I don't want you out on the road, right? And yet they're proud of themselves and they share it. And I see all the comments. So
How dumb are you? Okay, that one made me chuckle.
proud of you, babes. Fantastic babes. I'm not saying it's just necessarily a woman. It could be anybody. But it's just like this constant celebration of failure or weakness. Mediocrity. And simple ad, it told the story. What does they, them mean? There's only one person sitting there. How can one person be they, them?
Okay, he's actually being a little bit funny right now.
Sam Smith can't remember if he's Sam, him, her, or they, them. Must be incredibly confusing when he gets up in the morning. But why do we have to pander to this bullshit? Right? So, look, I thought I was liberal, right? But all this stuff just sounds completely insane to me.
I think we're all just rational.
And don't want it. Okay. But why do you obsess, as they all seem to do, about what we believe? Have your own non-belief and believe in that. You're fine. But shut up about it. Why does it bother you? Nothing to do with you, whether I believe in God or not. Right? If you don't, fine. If you think at the end of your life, that's it, you're worm food and nothing happens, fine. I will die a lot happier than you because I think there's a lot of good stuff waiting for me up there. And that makes me feel good. You must, as you get nearer and nearer death, feel absolutely bloody terrible because you're thinking, that's it, forever. And you can't even say what forever is.
Musk's views, despite all of these amazing accomplishments in the past, actually, he was left-leaning.
Yeah.
Right? So despite all of this brilliance, actually, he kind of was going along with the thing until
by the way,
the thing kind of ate one of his kids, and then he was like, wait, what's going on?
Okay, but so was Trump to a degree, so was Trump.
No, Trump was always a businessman.
No,
he
Trump
was always about his money.
Okay.
So pause here. What she's talking about is that Elon Musk at one point, I mean, he has like 10 kids, but one of his kids turned out to be a transsexual. He came out the closet. He said he identifies as a woman or the other way around. And ever since then, Elon Musk just totally flipped.
Okay, but
He was never a lefty wokey.
Okay, but Trump did sign up for, say, the assault weapons ban. He agreed with that.
Okay, but I'm saying, like, he
so
wasn't...
you look at these, Joe Rogan, you look at all these people, there's a lot of people, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, a lot of people that you might have said, well, they were sort of leaning Democrats, really. So,
do you think, I'm just going to push back on the Elon Musk thing, and I'm not even pushing back, I just find myself puzzled about it. I wonder if we're attributing too much superheroism to Elon Musk because he did this amazing thing, having freed the bird.
I think he actually might be a superhero.
Because, see, I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a superhero.
Well, I like him too.
Yeah, but I think, Elon Musk, I sort of...
But look at his achievements.
I'm like, what do I know about Elon Musk, really?
Let me help you.
Yeah, Elon Musk is very complex, very hard to read.
Let me help you answer that question. What you know is that almost every business he starts, everyone condemns it to immediate failure. Everyone thinks it's destined to fail. It cannot be achieved. It's always done on a massive, grandiose scale with a massive, grandiose plan. And he's delivered. I mean, look at SpaceX. SpaceX is probably the most coveted company in the world right now by every other successful business person. If you ask them, they all think SpaceX is the company in the world. And he built that, and people said it's never going to work. This is going to throw good money after bad. It's never going to work. Look at what SpaceX does around the world now. Look at the satellite systems, never mind anything else, are just on a different level to anything we've seen. He's even, I saw the other day, planning to help with the countryside issue in the UK. If you live in the countryside, you don't get a phone signal. He said, I'll sort that for you, right? He just thinks, I'll fix Britain and his phone signal. That's how he thinks. Actually, what's the common thread here? All of it is a force for good. All of it ultimately is designed to save us from ourselves. It is colonizing Mars, humanoid robots, all these other things he's doing. But look at the space rocket when it landed in the cradle, right? Just the sheer mind-blowing scale of ambition that Musk has. And he believes we'll get to Mars in his lifetime and we'll start colonizing. And he thinks it's really important. So my point is, if you look at it, what is a superhero? A superhero is somebody who thinks on a massively big scale for the good of the people and often saves the people from themselves. By that criteria, and I'm not saying he's a perfect human being. He can be difficult and all the rest of it. Of course he can. And he wouldn't say he's perfect himself. But by a superhero criteria, right now in the world, who is having a bigger transformative superhero world right now than Elon Musk? Who? Give me a name. Who's doing more good?
But that's fine. What I'm just saying is that actually, I would like to flesh out what his ideas are more, because I say this, by the way, I'm saying this from like a religious perspective, because I actually am not keen on the humanist agenda. I'm not keen on Neuralink. I'm not keen on all of that stuff. Yeah.
This is actually a great point because Elon Musk is getting closer and closer to government. And say what you say about him, he's really smart. He has a lot of money and he has been doing some good things. It's just there's a lot of conflict of interest there, man. I gotta admit that there's a lot of conflict of interest there. With that being said, I do hope that you enjoy these type of podcasts where I watch the whole podcast and I just find the highlighted moments and then I post them so you don't waste your time watching the whole entire podcast. If you do enjoy that, make sure you please press the like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps push my videos out to a bigger audience and raise awareness. Thanks.
I
Even
find
if
it
paraplegic
conflicts.
people can communicate, which is what it's about.
I just think it's a step too far. Yeah, I'm not keen on that. Yeah.
See, I like it.
It's sort of the bigger equation when we start talking about IVF, and a big debate that's waging here, by the way. I think you guys just approved it, right? The death pods. I just have
I understand.
and I'd like to hear more about that. So it's not really a judgment against him. It's just more
Yes.
like, okay, now that you're in government, actually, I really would like to Pierce and understand more about what you believe.
And crucially, of course, he's not in government.
Right.
So he's slightly detached. What I
Yes.
do think is if I would put money on anyone to slash unnecessary bureaucracy and spending in the federal government, it would be Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I wish he'd come here and do it here.
Yeah, I'm
I
very
wish-
pleased about him and Vivek
I mean,
doing
I have one question. If we put Elon Musk in charge of the National Health Service here, what would happen?
Be great.
I can absolutely guarantee he'd turn it around. The guy is a genius. So I think he is a superhero. It doesn't come with no caveats, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone. Well, it's Trump first.
So Elon Musk is a genius. My only problem is it's just way too much influence from one person in our government. So he's, Trump's right-hand man right now. That's a lot of influence. Plus, he controls X. He controls what ideas, agendas get pushed, what don't. There's just a lot of power in one person's hand. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, you don't want that in one person's hand. That's my only issue here.
Time around seemed chaotic and therefore stroke potentially a problem for competence. This time he's surrounding himself with incredibly high performing competent people like Elon. That's what makes it really interesting to me. And that's why I think his next term could be genuinely transformative. And people might say Trump's a bad guy. I don't think he is a bad guy. I think he's somebody who had the wrong people around him first time around and was being beaten up so mercilessly by the media that his only response was to go after them with equal venom. This time I see he's calmer, he's better organized, he's chosen his cabinet in record time, he's chosen people who are disruptive but they're smart, and they're just going to operate on a different way to establishment people would do. But he's got Elon Musk sitting there helping him all the way with all this stuff. It's a lethal combination. Trump's instincts and Elon's ability and instincts to operate at a very elite level. So hang on. What racist thing did he say? And it all blew up. She got blindsided, and she got fired from a talk, a job she loved, for having the audacity to support me, even though everyone knew I hadn't said a racist thing. Not one word. Cheryl Underwood couldn't actually say what it was I was supposed to have said that was racist. It was utterly shameful of CBS to do what they did to Sharon that day. And the fallout from that whole Oprah interview, if you watch the whole sequence of events, really a shocking attack on freedom of speech is really what it came down to. You could say something right now. I'm entitled to say, I don't believe you.
Right.
And you're entitled to say, well, I'm right because boom, 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 boom. But the idea that your first reaction is, if you don't believe me, you're racist because I'm not white. So, sorry, what? That's the criteria? I'm not allowed to disbelieve you because of your skin color? That's how preposterous it was. If you criticize the Israeli government, you must be anti-Semitic.
Yeah, you hate Jews.
Right? And it works the other way too. I see it on both sides, but this is where we've got to. And it's the same with the trans debate about trans athletes in women's sport. We may get to that, but I felt very strongly about that any attempt to challenge the accepted view that this is fair and rational to allow biological men to put their hands up, say they're women and compete in women's sport and hammer women into the ground, literally with their fists in boxing rings in the Olympics. The idea that if you do that, you are transphobic, that you have a hatred of trans people, I just find completely outrageous. And it's being used more and more by the woke left as a form of, as Elon calls it, a form of communism, really. This is communism. And people who believe in freedom of speech and freedom and democracy, you have to fight this with every inch of your life, because if we don't, we will go down that path of communism, of fascism, of that control world that they want, and that way madness lies. I was told very categorically by ITV here, who are the NBC of the UK, they said, look, if you apologise for disbelieving her, you can keep your job. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that, which I think they probably knew.
So I think Piers Morgan here is going over one of the controversies he had. Now, I'm not too familiar with the controversy that he went through in England, but it seems like he was basically told he was being racist, and he stood on his principles, and he got fired for it, and then he became a national hero. That's what it seems like to me. Someone in the comments, let me know.
And I literally left that afternoon. I mean, it was a fait accompli. You apologise, you keep the job. In other words, you grovel to Meghan Markle, who, unbeknown to me, had written a personal letter to the chief executive.
Oh God, it was about Meghan Markle. Oh, I hate her. Okay, so I'm kind of he's raising up in his ranks right now for me.
Executive of the company, who was a woman, and had said to her, I write to you as a woman and as a mother. You have to fire him. And I wasn't told that in the deliberations that went on that day. Had I known that, I would have gone public with the whole thing and had a very different argument with them. I would have just dug my heels in and went, you're going to really allow this Duchess to decide who works at ITV? But what was interesting was, in the moment, it was also febrile. It was kind of chaotic and mayhem, and it was leading the news and everything else. And I just remember it turned on a dime in about 24 hours. I began walking around. I felt like the Pied Piper. There were literally people, bus drivers tooting horns, cab drivers cheering me, public coming across roads to hug me, to shake my hand, because they understood that actually what it was about was a battle for free speech. And they understood that if you want to be actually British, or American obviously, but if you want to be British, actually you've got to fight for free speech. This is what Churchill fought the Nazis about: freedom and democracy and free speech. People lost their lives on battlefields so that we have the right to actually exercise our right to free speech. Book out. It had just come out. I remember it was like number 2,000 on the Amazon chart just the first few days. It went to number 1 in 3 days, and it stayed there for weeks and sold a huge amount of copies, because the book was called Wake Up, and it was a clarion call to the liberal left to wake up and stop this woke madness before it was too late. And I'm almost going to do another book going, told you, right? Because you look at the scale of Trump's win in the US election, and one of the reasons was cost of living, obviously. One was illegal immigration. But a third big plank of this was the basic destruction of the woke mind virus. They brought in a vaccine called Trump and Elon Musk, who basically, I know you won't like the analogy to a vaccine, but they vaccinated the woke mind virus in spectacular fashion. And a lot of young men in particular went, I'm just done with this. I'm sorry, I'm just done with this crap. It's not based on fact. I'm not going to be bullied anymore into going along with this nonsense. And I'm going to exercise my right to freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of thought and expression. And I think that was a really important part of that election, actually. And I'm very glad to have seen it.
Who is the worst person that you've been around? For people that are watching this, you partied back in the day with everyone from Madonna. You have been around some very powerful people.
She's awful.
She is awful.
Madonna's awful.
Yeah. She's awful.
Inherently awful. She's put a picture out today of a faked AI picture of, I think, the Pope groping her or something. That's classic Madonna. It's just the worst kind of pathetic attention seeking, guaranteed to enrage Catholics like me, you. It's like, why would you do that? It's so pathetic, so puerile, so attention-seeking, and that's been her whole raison d'etre. She used to be a great pop star back in her 20s, but now she's just a total embarrassment. But I don't just a bit. You can celebrate achievement. You can want to win. You can celebrate winning. And you can hate losing, actually. It's fine to hate losing. Nothing good about losing. Who wants to lose, let alone celebrate it? So I do think there's all these things where I feel there's a correction going. I feel like the woke worm has turned quite rapidly since Trump's win. In a way, it became the catalyst, because everything Kamala Harris stood for was all this crap. Everything Biden stood for was all this crap. And that ad he did, Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you. Devastating. Devastating.
Humane. What do you think? Where do you think the trajectory of media in America is going?
Because I think legacy media is in massive trouble. This $15 million payout by ABC to Trump for lying about him is a real turning point, right? Because Trump's win was so big and so across the board and such a repudiation of the legacy media. He basically did it by going on YouTube and podcasters. He just circumnavigated the traditional routes of running a presidential campaign, and it was incredibly effective. But also, it's the boy that cried wolf. You know, I just remember back to the first 2 years of Trump's first term when it was just Russia collusion. And when you say things often enough and the public buy into it, I mean, it turns out to be there was no Russia collusion. Trump didn't work with Russians to fix the election. It was all just lies. And I think a lot of the media knew it was lies. When you perpetrate that scale of lie for so long, but with such obvious, zealous enthusiasm to bring him down. And I think my favorite speech in movies is Rocky Balboa to his son, the spoiled brat son in the 6th movie, when he finally has it out with him in the street. And he says, life is not about how hard you can hit. Life's about how hard you can get hit, get back up, and keep moving forward.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. So this interview with Candace Owens and Piers Morgan, I got to see another side of Piers Morgan, not going to lie. And some of the things he said, I enjoy. Some of the things I didn't really agree with. What did you guys think about the interview? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoy videos like this, once again, where I take all of the highlights of a long form podcast so you don't have to sit through the whole entire thing and just make it into one short video. If you enjoy that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.